Hey everybody, this is Eli Freestone and you're watching my gold walkthrough for Integrated Product Deployment Term 1504. This will be a bit longer of a video as I'll be walking through all the features of my application I've built for my final project as opposed to just what I've done this week, although I will highlight what I have done. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm also recording this video a bit early just because I'll likely be losing my quiet place later on this evening, and I wanted to make sure I was able to get a video done. I will be continuing to work on the project, but it'll more be searching for bugs and fixing any that I find. So there shouldn't be any major iterations between now and what I turn in this evening, but I do want to get it going now. All right, so let's go ahead and just for brevity's sake as well, I'll also be using similar features to talk about other features as opposed to doing each of them, just to make it move along faster. So we'll go ahead and just start by making a new test user. And if you use an actual email, you can use this as a reset for your password, but we're just going to use a fake one. It does require some sort of an email, but it doesn't have to actually be legitimate. But again, if you do use a real one, you can reset your password with it. All right. So to start out, we have no recipes. So let's go ahead and click plus to add a new recipe. And I made this, the recipe input, I wanted to make it as open as possible so you're not really tied to any specific type of recipe, and you can add in as much or as little details as you'd like. We'll just call this test, we'll change it to wine, we'll add an ingredient. As of right now, there's just ingredient placeholders, but I'm working on finalizing ingredient lists. There'll likely be different categories of ingredients. But for right now, for all testing purposes and everything, this works fine. And selecting other also gives you the option of entering a custom ingredient. We'll just call this custom other. Save it, and then we can select our quantities. Now this is also set up with two different quantities, or two different types of quantities. You can either select imperial or metric on the settings screen, and it'll change this area. You can then have liters or right now it defaults to imperial, so I have ounces and pounds. We'll just call it 68 ounces. Then we'll add timers. Under 24 hours, we'll start a timer. Once it's selected, that is, we'll start a timer on the timer tab. We'll just call it 2 minutes. That's the default. And then temps, again, this is imperial or metric. Imperial is the default, so this will be Fahrenheit, but if you switch it to metric over on settings, it'll change it to Celsius. We'll just call it 29. Those, they don't really do anything beyond just showing what the temp is. And then notes is just a quick way to add in extra stuff into the text field. And we'll just call this test note. Click save. All right, so let's go ahead and save that guy. So then we have the table view here, and each of the different types of recipes have different icons. The wine is a wine bottle with a red background. The beer, actually, let's go ahead and just create a really quick beer and a quick other, just to show those. The only required inputs are the title, the top one here, and then at least one line of instructions. It does actually, here we'll go ahead and delete this real quick and show that it does give an error message stating that recipe name and some instructions are required. We'll just call that test. So there would be the beer icon, and then let's do one more for the other icon. Oh, misspelled other, but that's okay. All right, so the other icon is a jar, and then it's a dark, really dark gray background, and then light foamy tan color for the other. All right, so let's go ahead and show what you can do with the recipes. Actually, first let's go ahead and do a timer. I did put a timer on, oh, sorry, it was on the wine. There we go. So you can see that it's a red color, and if you long press that timer, it'll then pop up an alert view where you can enter in a description and then start the timer over on the timers tab. So we'll just call this test timer, click start, and then we can click over to the timers tab and it'll show the timer going. And also, if the user were to background the application at this moment, it would start a local notification, and as long as they approved the push notifications, it will then still alert them of the timer finishing even if they don't have the application running. And then as you can see, there's a second timer on the bottom. This new timer button is actually going to be replaced with a label. I actually forgot about doing that because I moved it up into the navigation bar. So let's go ahead and add a second timer. We'll go ahead and click no again because it's still under 24 hours. Over 24 hours, do create timer or calendar events in a custom calendar within the user's device. They are asked for permission for that as well, and as long as they approve it, it will create that timer, and then it'll give them their their standard calendar alert when that time is up. I thought that was a useful feature because a lot of times some of those timers are weeks or even months before they need to do anything with the recipe of wine or beer. So let's go ahead and just start 4. And if you don't put any description in here, it just changes it to no description. But then these are independently, you can pause or start them, as well as cancel them, and then it'll actually give a ding when the timer is up to tell the user that it is finished. All right, so let's go ahead and click over to browsing recipes. This is recipes from other users. The default right now is actually changing the sort, but you can change it to favorites. I don't currently have any favorites for this user, so nothing will show up. But newest, oldest, the type, so on and so forth. You can even sort or search for the username, and that is not case sensitive to search it. So let's go ahead and just search test. Actually, that's going to come up with a lot of them, so that won't necessarily. If we just do beer, you can see that beer is coming up both upper and lowercase. All right, so let's go ahead and search Eli, and you can see that all of them that have Eli in it or are by Eli, by that profile, they're showing up as well. All right, so let's go ahead and select this my kombucha, and then we can copy it. And then you can see that it adds the username to the end. The user's allowed to change this, obviously. I just thought that was a good default, but then they can go ahead and change this recipe and do some experiments with it, whatever. Let's go ahead and just leave it and click save. And looks like my internet is getting a bit slow here, so give it just a moment. Oh, actually, looks like the simulator is having an issue with the keyboard. Alright, so I might have to restart this, but what it's going to do is going to save it to my recipes, but it's going to keep the by Eli on the end. Yep, there it goes. So it looks like, yeah, this is unfortunately a simulator issue. It says right here that the keyboard daemon, after 2 consecutive failures, sending to sync to keyboard state, that did crash. So let's go ahead and just restart it, and we'll see if it actually saved. No, it did not. So let's go ahead and browse again, and we'll just collect sourdough, copy it, and save it. There we go. So sorry about that delay there, but unfortunately the simulator can be a little bit buggy at times. But then you can see sourdough bread by test, and then if we want, we can go ahead and come into this one. Then in the menu, we have edit, copy, share, or delete. Sharing is on Twitter or Facebook. It's whatever accounts the user has signed in on their device. It won't ask the users to sign into anything. It'll only allow, if they're already signed in on their device, to share on those 2 social media networks. And so let's go ahead and just edit this one, and we'll remove the by test part. But you do have the option of just copying it, and then you can actually shut off editing from the settings so that you always have to copy your recipes. That way, if you want to do some experiments, you're not changing the original recipe, you're just adding to it, and then if it works out, you can save the new one, rename it, whatever. If it doesn't, you can just delete it. Not a big deal. All right, so let's go ahead and just, actually, let's go ahead. Yeah, let's just go ahead and save it. All right, so that's how that part works. Let's see. As of right now, autosync is not set up, but there's not the back end for saving all of the parse objects to the local device other than caching. That's just a lot more logic that I hadn't had time to actually add in. Switching the recipes from recipes off of public, that actually makes them all private. Then they no longer show up in browse by default. But then also, let's go ahead and keep this over there, but also inside the recipes you have the option of changing it locally for the single recipe, and that way if you're still working on a recipe and you don't want to share it with the world yet, just flip that switch over. It's now private, it won't show up. Also, while you're working on recipes, you can switch the active switch over, and then if you have a lot of recipes, you can easily sort it with the active switch, and then only active recipes will show up, and then once you're done, switch it back over. I originally was going to also actually automatically set it to active whenever you start a timer, but I decided just against that, just because, you know, it might not be the actual the way that the user wants it to work. So I wanted them to decide on their own if they want to go and switch the active switch over to, if they're going to utilize that feature or not, and not make that decision for them. So I did decide to keep that as not active from default, and you know, call it good from there. Each personal recipe also has Oh, because I turned that off of active. Each recipe also has its own private log or a notepad type feature. You'll notice it right here, and it's not available on browsing, so this is private to the user. So this is where you would put all of your details, like your weekly checks of your wine, check the gravity, you can write it down with the date. But this is stuff that's not going to be shared with other users, so it's only relevant to you, so you can pretty much put whatever you want in there, but it's just a new view that has a complete text view, and it just has a placeholder that says this is a great place to jot down and track your progress related stuff, and then it has a quick example and then also states that this is not shared with other users. So users will definitely know what's going on with this, what they can use it for, what they should use it for, so on and so forth. Actually, let me change the hardware over so I'm not using my computer keyboard anymore, just to show how the scrolling also works on this. The keyboard, when it pops up, it'll scroll all the way up. And here, let's just actually do a few lines just to demonstrate it better. Actually, yeah, let's do it this way. And clicking done will automatically save that. All right, we need more lines to show that it scrolls up. It does scroll up the text view to show the user the final line. It also moves the icon to that final line. All right, just a couple more lines here and we will be good to go. As you can see, it's automatically scrolling up as is as well. Let's go ahead and click done, click back on it, and we'll go ahead and click there. There it goes. The new item, new or edit, also does the same thing with the bottom text view, because otherwise it'll be covered. So let's go ahead and click into this. It slides the entire view up. Unfortunately, it does get rid of the navigation bar in the process because I'm actually moving a view up, not scrolling it. Which isn't ideal, but with having touch for the background to dismiss the keyboard, it's unfortunately a give and take in that situation. So then you just touch anywhere or press any buttons to get rid of the keyboard, as well as scroll the view down. But as you can see, it only scrolls up for this instructions, because otherwise it gets covered by the keyboard. Alright, so let's go ahead and cancel that guy out. Let's see if we're missing any features here. Oh, actually, you can also edit the user, both the email or the username. Password, the only way to set up to reset the password is via the reset password button in the login screen. This is due to the way that Parse does their security. It's not recommended that you change the password at any other location, because then the application itself is responsible for the security of that password, versus if you use the already set methods by Parse, it's all on their side, so they have control of that security. Because they can end up being liable for it. That's definitely understandable. The same goes for username. You can't get the username very easily without being signed in already. Again, that one is a little bit easier, but it's not recommended by Parse to do that, to allow the user to search for the username, like a forgot username type of deal. But I did find that if you click reset password, and you do have a legitimate email link to the account, that it will send you the email, and then if you click that link, it'll show you the username, and then you can, if you still need to, you can reset the password, or you can just see your username and then go sign in if you already know the password. That is one way to get the password, or get the username, but I mean, it's not necessarily the ideal situation, but according to Parse's security standards, it's really the only route they recommend. So we'll go ahead and keep it at that for now. And let's see, I think that's about it. We can also just sign out right here from the... Alright, that is actually supposed to go to... Oh, because I have these set up. There we go. It's supposed to, I forgot that I was still on the details views, but it's supposed to go back to the login. Here's the forgotten password part I was talking about. If you click on it, you enter in your password or your email, and as long as that's a legitimate email that you have access to, it'll then send you a link to reset your password, or as I said earlier, you can view your username that way. Not necessarily the ideal situation, but it is a functional way of getting that password, or that username, sorry. Alright, so I guess that's about it. This has been Eli Freestone, IPD term 1504. This is my gold walkthrough for my Brewlog, which is my final project. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.